Hi there, I just thought I would come on here and share a quick flip through of my 2020 Project Life album. If you've been following me on Instagram for a while, I did share a flip through of this album previously, but I thought I would record a new one to share over here on YouTube. So for Project Life, I do sort of weekly spreads and I complete 2 albums per year. So this is the first half of 2020, it runs January through June. And for my intro page here, I did a couple of transparencies. This one I created in Photoshop and printed at home. And then I included a photo of each of us with our ages on there. And I found some font that sort of went along with this card from an Ali Edwards Stories by the Month kit. So most of my products are from Ali Edwards. I use a lot of Stories by the Month and story kits. So this spread here in January is with the Stories by the Month from January. I also use products from a variety of other companies. I use Paper Person sometimes. You'll see some Feed Your Craft, just some other companies just show up. So here's this week in January. Then this week, something I want to point out, we were building a house at the beginning of 2020, and starting even in my 2019 album, going through this one, I included a photo right here every week of progress on our house. The only week I didn't do it was this week because we went to California and we were there for the entire week. So my parents live in California, so we were visiting them. And I was in a wedding for one of my best friends, who's also from the same area. So I have a bunch of photos from her wedding. I have some photos from visiting with my family. So I have a ton of inserts here, because we had all of the bridesmaid activities and of course all the wedding photos. I have the invitation in here. I have a second insert. And then here's a few more photos. So the wedding took up a lot of it. The photos were just so gorgeous. I didn't want to cut any of them out. And then I have some photos here with my family. So then we're back in New York. And I included the travel day on this week because I didn't have very many photos because I was super sick. When we came back, I got the flu. And so I had not a lot to document. I have some photos of that. I took it, when I don't have a ton, I screenshot things. So this is a screenshot of the show I was watching at the time. And then here is back to the progress on the house. And sometimes I also included some photos of the interior of the house as it was coming along, but this was a consistent every single week. Then here, I think that this was with the story kit. I can't remember, I think maybe Pieces. This has a bunch of things from different story kits. So this was from the Watch story kit. This I think was from Pieces. This looks like it's from Citrus Twist maybe. This is from the foodie release from Ali Edwards. So once in a while, I will just pull from my stash. And then this week I did turn a few of the photos black and white. And I think that was just something I did because the colors were not great. And that way it kind of helped make the spread not so crazy looking. So here we're moving into February. I think this was from the January Stories by the Month kit. And I was kind of using up some of those pieces as we were transitioning into February. I also include some traditional layouts in here. In addition to my annual Project Life albums, I put together some other albums, and I can share some of those at some point on here, but whenever I do a traditional layout that is focused on current stories, I will include it in here. So this was one about the progress on our house. On the back here, I did one using the Watch story kit, and this was about my husband and my tradition of watching the Oscar nominees every year. So these 2 layouts don't necessarily have to do in this week. So this one I made in January. This one I'm guessing was in February because that's when the Oscars typically are, and they were just the same size, so I stuck them in here about the right time. Again, my house photo. I love this, the Watch story stamp. I use that all the time for this TV icon because I just think it's great. I've used it in multiple spreads. I think you'll find it in this album and other projects. It's one I go back to over and over. Here's using the February stories by the month. Sometimes when I have a lot of photos, I will create templates and Photoshop elements so I can include a few of them on a card. And that way I also get a little bit of extra white space. Here were our ballots that I printed out for the Oscars. Sometimes I'll include like bits of ephemera in here in pockets too. And again, here's another template I did for my daughter went to the snowball dance. So as our house was progressing, they started working more on the inside than the outside. So I started taking pictures here for some weeks that were what would ultimately be my kitchen. So this is the kitchen in my house. At the time, I think we had just gotten the hardwood floors. Yes, that's what this says here, but there's no anything else in there. And then on this week, we have cabinets. And then I also added some extra photos because there was a lot of progress made in some of the other rooms. Our fireplace mantle was here, you know, and here's a photo of us in front of the house, and just, you know, bits and pieces of life in here. And again, this is using the February stories by the month kit. When I'm using those stories by the month kit, the spreads just come together so easily because the colors are all coordinating, and I tend to choose one or two like ideas that I use across the spread. So for this one, these hearts, I believe were wood veneer hearts, were in that story. It's by the month kit, and I just heat embossed them. These ones I did pink, that one I did white, and then I just added some word phrase strips across them, and I used them on a few of the pockets here to just kind of tie the spread together. And that takes a lot of the guesswork out of each pocket and makes the spreads come together much more quickly. So this week we went to Syracuse for a day trip, and actually that ended up being the entire spread except for like a few of these pieces and then the house photo. But a lot of these were just from one day, which is perfectly fine. You know, it's just getting an overview. I don't have to capture every single story that happened during the week. So I have been doing Project Life since 2013, and I still love this project, but one of the things that makes it stay exciting for me is the fact that I mix it up from week to week. So I often will, if I'm starting to feel a little bored with my style, we'll just go online and find some inspiration and copy the styles of other scrapbookers and just kind of use them as an inspiration. So for this one, I was inspired by Julie Pfeiffer-Balzer, and I used some things I've picked up from looking at some of her spreads from Project Life to get an idea of her style and just kind of try it out. And I had a ton of fun with it. I love how it came out, but I will say this spread took so long compared to my normal projects that I know probably won't use the style that often. But one thing that she does in her Project Life, I don't know that she creates Project Life anymore, but in her older albums, she adds the dates on. Every day so it's almost like a daily project, and I've had a lot of fun adding the numbers. That's something I do in December daily, but I don't always do in here, and looking at that now, I kind of want to try that again in another week. And actually I did do that a little bit in 2021, but I haven't done it in a while. For this spread, so once in a while I will also just do a themed spread. So this one I was using the list story kit, and because, I mean, every week is not exactly the same, but we do a lot of the same stuff, I don't have to capture every single story every single week. Instead, I can just say, okay, this week I'm gonna focus on food and just do photos of food. This one I focused on lists because of the list story kit, and I just created a to-do list every single day. And I checked off all the things that I actually accomplished. I left some things that I did not get to, that I wanted to get to. And this was just kind of how I told the story of this week. I also included a little bit of journaling here about progress on our house, my weekly photo of the kitchen, some photos, we went on a few walks this week, and some screenshots because this is when the pandemic is starting to become an issue. And I see this, New York now has 22 confirmed COVID cases, 11 new positive tests since yesterday. If only we just had those numbers. Then this was the last normal week. We didn't know it at the time. I did include a front page here of New York Times that says U.S. limits travel after WHO cites the pandemic. Sometimes I will do that where I will take the front page from today's front page app from the museum, and I will use that to kind of tell a story of what's going on in the world rather than journaling about it. And it's just a very easy way to do that. I also use this In the World Today stamp, and this is an older one from Kelly Perky. And I use that to kind of take some notes or make some notes of a lot of the COVID things that were going on in the world, because it was starting to kind of be like, whoa, we need to pay attention to this. My daughter and I went to hot yoga. The very last time we've done that, we still have not gone back. And I used this paper pad, I think it was from an old Day in the Life kit, to kind of add some detail to a few of the pockets. This one you can see I used a different divided page protector configuration. I do that occasionally because I had so much I wanted to include, but not enough for an insert. This way I was able to add in a few more pockets. This one is a configuration I got from scrapbook.com. And because it has the 2 pockets here, I had to put my kitchen photo here, and it looks like we got our countertops in. Now this is where the pandemic hits. So I have, photo, I'm still going to the office. My husband and daughter are doing work and school from home. This is, so I have a bunch of photos of that. I was still doing home and work. I was working from home and from the office 50-50 about at this point in time, because we were still transitioning, and my job, I was going in the entire time because of just the nature of what I do, and we couldn't stop work. And I work for the government, so the governor said we were still going in. So I also took a photo of the TV where they were doing the updates. I don't know if they did this wherever you live. In our state, the governor did a weekly or a daily briefing with these numbers on the screen of cases in our state and in the US and in the world. And it's really neat to go back and kind of see that and kind of see the progression over time of how our lives changed. We also decided to go on a hike because we were cooped up at home. And so I took a bunch of photos of that, because getting out in nature was really one of the only things you could do outside of your house. I baked, so it was also my husband's birthday, and we weren't able to go out for his birthday like we normally do, but I still baked him a cake and we did gifts. It was really funny because I had already got his birthday gift before the pandemic hit, but I hadn't gotten wrapping paper. So I had to use leftovers from my daughter's birthday last year, so it says birthday girl over it. He doesn't care, but my daughter was also extremely bored at home, so she decided to dye her own hair. So I have photos of that. And these, I just used a bunch of pandemic cards. I think these were some freebie printables, and I don't remember where I got them from, but they are really nice. And then here's more updates on our house. So we were still visiting our house. Thankfully, we were able to still get in there because we were always going when the workers were not there the whole time, even before the pandemic. Then, so this week I just documented a day in the life, and instead of creating a separate mini album, I just did it on an insert here. These were actually 3x8 cards, but I didn't want to do 3x8 because I wanted to include it in here. So I cropped this one in half and created like 2 pieces here. And then I had cropped off the bottom halves that had these stripes. There was like, this was this here, and then this was the stripes at the bottom. And I cropped them and used the stripes as borders for photos. And then I journaled on all of these prompt cards, and it also goes onto the back here. And I tried to document all of these things throughout the day. Again, going on hikes, journaling about the pandemic, FaceTiming with friends because, I wasn't able to see them anymore, updates on our house, the same usual. Oh, and then it was really hilarious. Our cat was like, why is everyone home all the time? He started kind of freaking out about it and being a little crowded feeling. Also, we were living in an apartment at this time temporarily while our house was finished being built, so we were all kind of extra on top of each other, so it wasn't great. Here I'm using that stamp of the TV again, and what I did was I used an X-Acto knife to cut out the inside of the stamp, and behind it I printed out little tiny photos of things that I pulled off of just Google image search of the different shows that I was watching. Screenshots of, COVID updates, Zoom calls with family, house updates. Here I did both the front of the house and the kitchen because there were changes on them. Documenting, the social distancing measures that were coming in to grocery stores, and again, the TV updates. So at this point in time, like, the pandemic was so new. I was like, what is happening? So I wanted to kind of document a lot of that as it unfolded. And it's neat to look back and not only see what was happening in the world, but like how I felt about it at that point in time, not knowing what I know now about how long it was going to last. Here's me starting to work from home, doing some crafts with my daughter because she's extremely bored, not getting to see her friends. At this point, she was 14. Yeah, she was 14 then. So, she's a freshman in high school here, and she just really was very sad she wasn't able to see people or do things. I added another little insert here because we were still going on hikes. It wasn't quite too cold yet to get out of the house. And something I like to do when I have just like more photos and stuff is just do a summary card of just like things that happened this week. And again, more progress photos on our house, which especially with us being home all the time, this was like a big highlight of like the only time we really left the house. Here we are, so we started wearing masks. I think that was the first time they popped up, yeah. Started wearing masks. I got some of the pandemic kits from Kelly Perky's shop. Can't remember if she was Paper Person yet. I think she was still Kelly Perky shop. And then I used those to document this week. Here, I, again, am adding a traditional layout. As you can see, I didn't add any for a while there. I tend to add less of these when I'm more behind on my scrapbooking or busier. So this is fine because there's no real, if I don't add any, I'm perfectly happy with it. So here I use the gratitude story kit to kind of talk about 5 things that I was actually grateful for about being in quarantine, like the positive sides, because it was such a hard time and hard transition. So trying to see like the silver lining. And then this one, I used the progress story kit to document our house finally being done. And that was actually May 12th. So that's, a month after the spread that this is in. But, this one was documented in April. So that's just kind of why that's there. My daughter gave my husband a haircut. I made masks, progress in our kitchen, my beautiful shelves. That's my favorite part of my house, of the construction of the house. Here again, continuing life, 2020. It's very repetitive, pretty much every week, working from home, going for hikes, documenting progress on our house. And I just kind of had fun pulling different things out of my stash to kind of add a repeated element across the page. So these were like pleather embellishments that were from Allie Edwards. I think these were the very first ones that she came out with, this pleather. And these were some story cards that she had from one of her old story kits. I don't know, Journey, Loss, I don't know, something like that. And I figured out that these fit perfectly in there. So instead of using them as journaling cards, I use them as homes for these pleather embellishments. And I added these 2 6x8 photos from our hike just to have some like larger photos in here. And then again, progress on the house. This spread, I used the friendship story here, friend story kit. So I didn't used to use the story kits to create their own spreads. I used to just kind of use them throughout as like specific cards made sense. But I started in 2020 really trying to make a spread from a specific story kit and kind of frame that week through that lens of whatever that story theme was. And I love doing that now. And that's something, those are some of my favorite Project Life spreads. And this was one of the first ones that I did where I'm using the friend story kit. I also was pulling pieces from Kelly Perky, one of her pandemic kits, because those just kind of fit, throughout here. This was a page I did from the We story kit about the fact that we go for hikes a lot. And then here I took a I saved today's front page, this New York Times front page, where they were talking about the US death tolls hitting 100,000 from COVID. And I just thought printing that as a full page would make a great impact of kind of like what is going on here. And then also, I just didn't have another 8.5 by 11 spread. So instead of creating one, I used that pocket to include this rather than printing that small size where you wouldn't actually be able to read a lot of that. Here we're moving into May, and this is when we finally scheduled our closing on our house. And I'm just kind of having fun with like colors here. I started doing jelly printing, so I just kind of cropped a piece from that. We have Mother's Day, progress on our house, screenshot of Enneagram scores because I took that test. And then this was Week in the Life. So Week in the Life, I did an entirely separate album, so I don't necessarily need to document very much in here because it's already documented. It has its whole own album. But at the same time, I want a complete story of what was happening in this album. I don't want to just skip it. So I come up with a different way to document every year. This year, what I decided to do was document the 2 big events that happened during Week in the Life this year, because this was not a normal week in life. Not only were we in the pandemic, but it was my daughter's 15th birthday. And we did like a drive-by parade party. And we closed on our house. So even though they didn't finish all the exterior stuff because they were like in the winter dates, even though it's May, we did close on our house. The inside was done as far as they could get it because of the pandemic. We had some adjustments, but what I decided to do was I kind of copied my formatting of this where I was using the number of the week, and I created my own little like larger one with the stamps that said 33. And it blew up the photo to fill up the entire page. Then my daughter turned 15, so I kind of mirrored that on this side. I just took that one corner out of the photo so that I could create a title card. And I stuck a Week in the Life sticker, chipboard on here, so in case you were looking through here and didn't realize why this week didn't have any real information, you would know that that's why. Here I'm working with the looks like the Progress Story Kit, and again, pulling something out of my stash, this little pad of grid circles, and using the May Look Like This stamp as a repeated element through the spread. So the spread also had some inserts here. We moved this week. I did a bunch of painting in the house, so I have an extra insert with that, and again, just using this repeated element to tie the spread together. I also did a insert here, Progress Isn't Possible Without Change, and this is just documenting kind of what's going on with the pandemic. And the story continues card was perfect for it because that story is continuing as of, this was May 28th, 2020. So here's me, our house. I'm still doing these weekly photos because there's still progress on the house. I think I don't end up doing them actually every week, but I'm still doing them every so often. We got our driveway paved this week, so I did want to include that on here. And then just some photos as we're moving in and starting to set up furniture. So for this spread, we're saying goodbye to our old apartment, hello to our new house. So I decided to do some large stamping, and I used this May Was blank, and I stamped out Incredible because it was such a busy, big, incredible month because we finally moved into the house that we've been building and I've been dreaming about forever. So it was just a great month for that. Not great for a lot of stuff going on in the world, but again, including news in here so that I can kind of have that parallel to what's going on in my personal life and kind of see how that stuff lines up. Here we're moving into June, so getting towards the end of this album. And this is using June Stories by the Month kit. Again, pulling things from the Kelly Perky pandemic releases, just other bits and pieces, using screenshots to show the news of what's going on, documenting what I'm reading. Here's the Progress Story Kit to document progress on our kitchen. So although I had these throughout the album as they happened, This way I was able to kind of tell the longer story about building my dream kitchen and seeing it come to life. On the back here, I used the list story kit to tell a list of just 10 things going on in June. And then here, just continuing using the June stories by the month. For this spread, I believe I used the We story kit, at least like for some of these cards. And then I think I did pull in some pieces from other things. Like this is from Feature Craft. I love adding big stamping or alpha stamping. So sometimes I kind of forget to do it, but I love whenever I bring that in. Again, showing a photo of what our house looks like. Then this week, using Stories by the Month kit and just some other bits and pieces that I have. We got our garden planted, our landscaping, which, oh my gosh, that looks so nice compared to how it looks now. Of course, it is also October. Our shower door got installed. Our front door got painted. So I have, again, a photo of the front of our house. These right here, this craft paper is from Archer and Olive. So I have some of their, they're just like tear off pads, and it's like a dot grid craft paper. And I love to use it sometimes in here, and that way I can use that kind of as a base for my journaling. Here I'm using these cards that were from Stories by the Month. I think that was from the May Stories by the Month, but I like when there's that repeated kind of journaling, I use that across here. We got a new washer and dryer. I think I finally was able, I saw friends, and because it's summertime, it was starting to be a little bit better. So I think we met out on patio, but mostly staying home and just kind of talking about how we have everything we need now that we're in our house. So here is the very end of this album. So at July is when I switched to the second album, July 1st. So I actually went through July 1st here just because we were traveling. So it just made the most sense. So this week, I actually only documented there's only 29th through July 1st. I do that pretty frequently just because I want to split at the month there. And I split that right there because we went to Cape Cod starting on July 2nd. So it was a new vacation. We did get our closets installed, so I have that on here, even though this was just a couple days. And then our wedding anniversary is June 30th. So I documented that. And then to finish it off, I just cut a 12 by 12 piece of paper from my stash and put it in here. It's a great way to use papers that I have stored up that I love, but don't necessarily want to build anything on top of. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry if it was too long, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.